So much to talk about on this astronomical price of what people are paying for dichroic bevels as advertised on the internet right now. And what I've got, my job is going to do is to prepare people on really what they're paying, breaking it down for that little parcel right there. You see that on the internet, on Google, do a search for dichroic bevels, and you'll see some of these bevels, this shape, not with the lines of course, but you're paying the equivalent of $9.20. In other words, the bevel is going to cost you $1.10. I don't know why I got the 90 cents. I must have had a different figure up there, so let's just pretend like, I know the math doesn't work out there. Let's just pretend here. Bear with me. But you're paying the equivalent, that little parcel there, if you got them all dichroic coated, you're paying the equivalent of $9.20 for one bevel. Mine's cheaper. Mine's full view. And mine get crazy possibilities. Look at that. You want just a bevel that with that little, see that little table right there, that little diamond? You want that with dichro? Maybe I should paint it with a gold pen so you can see the difference on a clear background on black. This is my bevel, and the equivalent of what you're paying $9.20 for over here, I'll sell you mine for cheaper than that, and mine's full dichro. This is incredible possibilities. I have over 2,800 possibilities of color combinations that I can make bevels. Over 2,000. Most people only have the idea that there's, what, dozen dichroic colors available? Yeah, that's the average. I can do pixie sticks, balloons, honeycomb, any dichroic effect you've ever seen by CBS, I can make the bevels in that effect. This is Aurora Borealis. If that isn't incredible. I found out that Aurora Borealis on a faceted jewel is much better than just doing a faceted jewel in one color. Now I know this isn't a faceted jewel, this is just a dichroic bevel. But the Aurora Borealis, look at the difference. Huge. Because Aurora Borealis is a blend of colors. If you're used to Aurora Borealis, some of you fusers, you know what I'm talking about. A sheet of that is magnificent. And in fact, I think in the next video I'll bring up a sheet, what I've got left of Aurora, so you can see what it looks like. But check it out. Isn't that amazing? What people are paying for and don't realize it, but in the long run, for this bevel here, you're going to pay $10.55. That's the biggest increment of the sizes was the 1.5 inch ones. The 1 inch was pretty incredible. What you're paying for is that little center square done in dichro. You're paying the equivalent of $9.65. If the whole thing was coated at the rate that they're selling it for, $1.40 for this dichro, just the center of course, you're paying the equivalent of $9.65. I'm going to give you a dichroic bevel in any incredible amount of possibilities. Over 2,000 different color possibilities I can have these coated. And we're talking a lot less than $9.65. A lot less. But look at the impact. Here's the impact. Here's a clear bevel. And like I said, if I just used the gold pen and did the center square, here's a dichroic bevel. If you could see the colors, they're incredible colors. And here's one of my 1 inch. That same, this is a 1 inch, this is a 1 inch, and this is a 1 inch faceted jewel, square faceted jewel of course. Now look at that in Aurora. Isn't that incredible? You're not buying a little center of a square or like this. You're not buying a little teeny tiny little center which is coated on the top. The dichro is coated on the top. There's no effect when you see dichro coated on the top. There's none. You don't get the depth that dichroic achieves. By comparing dichro up with no cap over it to dichro under a cap, there's no comparison. Now I know these two aren't the same, but if I had this one identical, if I had two of them, one with a clear coating over the top and one exposed like this, you'd see it. You just have to let your imagination go. This is one of my fused glass cabochons here. And you get the depth and the beauty and the sparkle and the whole dimensionality of dichroic. That's what we talk about. That's all there is. Well, when you're doing a faceted jewel like this, and the dichro is not on the surface but actually underneath, then the possibilities are incredible. This is what we're talking about. Look at these color shifts. These are called shifts. This jewel here it's RB2. So what part of the band color width? I don't know. If this was, say, cyan copper, then we'd have a reflective color and a transmitted color, and then all these colors in between are called axis or shift colors. Blue gold. This is rainbow. I don't know what color bandwidth, because the way I say that is because rainbow has about 8, 9, 10 different bandwidths. On a sheet of rainbow, you're going to see colors go across in 2-3 inch increments. In fact, I'll show a sheet later of what that looks like. So anyway, I think you get the idea that if people realize what they're paying for the bevels, they'd be floored. Yeah, I know you're going to get 9 of these, or you'd have to buy 9 of them to see this much dichro in one, because you can see you'd have to buy another bevel and another. You'd have to buy 9 bevels to get the effect of this one. So people are buying it being spoon-fed 1/9 of a bevel and paying $1 just for that little center, plus the price of the bevel, $1.10. I think it's pretty mind-blowing. What do you guys think? Have you ever seen a full bevel, a full view bevel on the internet? No, because I'll be the first. If they had to coat this whole bevel, folks, you would be paying that kind of money. That's why you're not seeing them. That's why you're not seeing a 6-inch beveled circle that's 28.26 square inches. I'm doing bevels that big. So this is crazy. This is a 4-inch bevel, dichroic bevel. It's 12.56 square inches. Can you imagine at that rate, at $1, a parcel, which was down to here, oh my God, what would that cost? Geez Louise, that's only a 1/2 inch square. I'd have to take 24 times, because that's 12.5. In other words, that's 25. That's 25 of these center squares, and 25 times $1, that would be $25. That's about the rate. That'd be 25 bucks. That don't seem right when you get that small of one. You're paying the equivalent of $10.55. I know it's different math, but you get the point. That would be phenomenally expensive compared to this. So it's about time I'm going to wake up people to the idea that they're paying a lot of money for effect. A lot. Geez, you get into some of these cabs on Etsy, you're spending $20, $30, and this is basically 1 1/8 inch diameter right here. So this dichro is pretty amazing. Not only amazing in its absolute brilliance and colorations, but it's amazing the kind of money that people are throwing out there for dichroic and not even really realizing it. That's a standard color jewel. People are paying 10 bucks for these. That's a 2-inch. You can get them for less, of course. On sale, closeouts, some wholesale. But on a retail basis, this is just an amber bevel. You could pay 10 bucks for this, or more. But let's just use $10 as a standard. Crazy. You want that? Or do you want that? That's what it boils down to. Thanks for watching my videos. So much more excitement coming. Bye-bye.